broadcasting before it said we can only go up to 8 hours.
Oh, geez, forget it.
And we're live.
Oh?
Welcome back, everybody, to the 168. This is our version of the 48-hour art check. We do it for 168 hours. Check in once a week with my pal Gaz here and talk about, what we wanted to do, whether we did it, what kind of challenges we had, and what we're going to do next week. So, yeah. And then we rolled the song. Yeah, how about that?
Boom! It's gonna be great. 168.
Hey,
me on my plate. It's gonna be great. I meant to say me and my mate with 168. The challenges we face will be great. It's 168. Yeah, that's 168. Yeah, that's 168. Yeah, that's 168.
Yeah, oh, yeah. You on your plate.
Yeah, I messed that up. It's almost like there aren't official lyrics.
As there shouldn't be. So what's up, man? How has your week been?
It's been interesting. It's been a short week as we you know what? I'm not showing my face. People want to see my face, maybe. There I am. Hi.
Oh, hey.
It's been a shorter week, only 6 days. And I knew I had a few things coming up. One thing I didn't know I had coming up was I went to see a play Sunday, which wasn't on the calendar, so that kind of killed my whole Sunday. Although I figured weekends I wouldn't have a lot of time anyway.
Sure.
But yeah, how about you?
Oh, it's been a hell of a week. Yeah, really interesting. Nothing went how I wanted it to go.
Okay.
So that's always fun. Ended up injuring my hand somehow, so that's great for drawing. And yeah, so
that's all. You don't know how you injured your hand?
I really don't. What was going on? I was doing
I was punching rocks, and for some reason
stone walls, as I do. And no, I was doing a lot of digital work lately, and traditionally digital work does strain my hand a lot, and that's why this past year I kind of committed to doing a lot more traditional work.
I didn't know that was why, actually.
Yeah, it's a big problem. I get carpal tunnel, so sometimes it makes that flare up, but I don't know. I have problems with my hands.
Right.
I remember I showed you that one time where I'll get this weird like spasm where my index finger and my thumb will just kind of like start twitching.
Yeah.
It'll be like that for maybe a day, maybe 2 days. And that sucks. But that's not what this was. This was just a really horrible pain in this knuckle, not actually the finger at all. It's just this is keeping it from bending here. And I mean, excruciating. So I stopped doing digital work, and that was about like, I'd say Wednesday, somewhere around Wednesday. It's when I posted up that sketch of my character, Sissy.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to go back to traditional. I figured, well, I'm hurting myself. I can at least do this because I want some more character studies of Sissy so that I can make another page. But that wasn't what I committed to this week. But it was like, well, I could still make progress, you know?
Yeah, makes sense.
But I got through that one little sketch and like I could barely move my hand, like down here, just these fingers into the middle finger. It was just so painful. And it was like, it wasn't swollen, but it was definitely, the movement was inhibited like it was swollen.
Right.
And it just did not stop. It's been increasingly hard to do anything from just holding things, opening jars, whatever it is. And so, I just dealt with it. And then I made an appointment on Friday to go and see the doctor today. So I went and saw him, and he said that it could be one of three things, or it's something really rare and serious, but it's probably not that. He said it's probably either tendonitis, arthritis, or a combination of both. And so that's basically, he thinks it's tendonitis because that would be from doing a lot of like repetitive strain, like stuff that would continuously strain the tendons.
Maybe you don't know, or he didn't explain, but what's the difference between tendonitis and carpal tunnel?
I don't know.
Okay.
But he did explain tendonitis is it's basically like a pain loop in either a tendon or the muscles. It has more to do with the muscles. So there's like a subtle inflammation. There's something that's like, it's so subtle, you don't even notice it. You don't feel it, but your body is reacting to it. And the way that it reacts is it starts contracting the muscles. and more over time, it tightens. And because of that tightening, that small inflammation becomes a bigger inflammation, and then
Right.
it's a loop. It just keeps
Gotcha.
doing that.
So are you on some kind
That
of anti-inflammatory medicine then, or?
yeah, that too.
Okay.
Yep. So that was a good chunk of my day today, actually. Waiting in the doctor's office, talking to him. Had to go to Walgreens to get this thing and to get the medication, which I haven't taken yet because we had to do this. And I've been on that anti-inflammatory before, and I don't want to be all blue.
Oh, it's that strong?
It's yeah, it's like it mentally slows me down. It's not
Gotcha.
like too crazy, but I like being sharp.
So basically, after this, you're gonna sit on the couch and watch TV.
Pretty much, yes. Yeah. I'll put on like I don't know, some real trippy cartoons or something.
Gotcha. Well, that sounds not great. Which brings us to the next question then. Being that you had these issues, what, if anything, were you able to get done from what you planned to get done?
Yeah, hardly anything from what I planned to get done. I wanted to finish that concept page, which
Right.
I was already having kind of a tough time with it when my hand was okay. That was like the first 2 days. I put in, what was it? I got it written down here. I put in 5 hours on Tuesday and I put in 5 hours on Wednesday. And that's when the hand stuff started up. And with that 10 hours, I didn't make much progress. I've got
Is there something you could show us, or not even worth
no,
showing?
I don't even have anything to show.
Okay.
I was messing around with a lot of like photo bashing, actually, taking
Mhm.
different gun parts and different, I don't know, well, yeah, different gun parts. We'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
Smash them together to kind of just try to help me get somewhere. And so that's all that I really have. It's like multiple versions of that kind of stuff, but no real headway, nothing that I said, yeah, that's what I'm trying to do. Because I was just really foggy. You know, one of those days where shit just wasn't coming together, but I was going to keep at it, you know? So anyways, that was that. But once the hand thing started, I couldn't work digitally anymore. So I switched over to trying to do, you know, the sissy concepts or whatever. Couldn't do that. And then like the week was practically over at that point. This was like Friday. All of Friday was gone because we had to be out of town for Saturday. So I had to go rent a car. I had to make food, not just for that night, but for the weekend as well, because we had to bring stuff to a Father's Day get together, Father's Day 2.0. Also had to go shopping and wrap presents and pack and get all that stuff together Friday night. So we had to leave
once again.
early. Yeah, exactly. So I've really only had Wednesday and Thursday, which was really shitty days of, you know, not a whole lot at all. And then Sunday, I mean, we were wiped. We spent a couple days getting up earlier and going to sleep later than we normally would. And so that was just like Mike and Mel day recovery so that we could get through, you know, this week. However, after I got back from the doctor's today, I did start my next printer video, which was a big thing on the list. I finished the last one too. I didn't mention that, but I finished that one and posted that. This one is awesome. But I wasn't able to finish it before we started this show because I didn't know this at the time, but I didn't actually finish recording all the video and doing all the research that I needed. So I'm going to have to do that probably after this.
Oh, for like the voiceover, you mean? Or
yeah, voiceover. Gotcha. I do like a segment where I go through the website and the pricing, and then I give kind of like a final conclusion.
So you thought you had everything ready to go, but there was gotcha.
Yeah, and unfortunately, it's the more intense portion. Like it requires more research. How are you able to
work on editing though with your hand?
I just need a mouse, and it sucks. It's not easy to click at all, but
But I guess it's harder to do this than it is to do this.
Yeah, I can't even bend that finger to hold the pencil like I normally would.
Well, I will say, despite your hardships, I like the attitude of, hey, I'm having a hard time with this. I'm going to try some photo bashing. It's not working, but I'm going to keep going. And maybe you didn't get where you wanted to go, but you're like, I got to keep going. And then like, you're like, my hand hurts. Well, I'll switch to analog. And eventually it hurt so bad you should stop, which was the right thing to do. Yeah. But, and then like today you're like, well, I can't draw. Let me edit some video. Like, you know, and this is important because a lot of times people are like, well, I failed my goals or I can't make it or whatever. Like, and I could be unforgiving about that stuff. You know, I could,
I can too, actually, which is That's why I
Yeah.
wasn't looking forward to this because I'm like, well, geez, this is embarrassing.
Yeah, but again, you have legitimate reasons. It's not like you were being lazy or you just felt like, like things happen, physical things happened. And on top of that, more importantly, it's the attitude I think is very important. When someone doesn't meet a goal and they're like, well, whatever, who really cares, But if
Right.
you're like, damn, I wanted to make that goal, and even when you were, quote unquote failing, you were still trying to push forward. Like you're trying to go forward, this path is closed, so you go to the left, that one's closed, so you go up. Like you're still trying to do something,
Yeah.
and like you tried a few different paths and they kept getting blocked, but I give you a lot of credit for the attitude of keep pushing forward, and for feeling kind of bad about failing. Not that you need to feel bad about failing, but there is
I do.
something. but
I do.
and it's weird because like you don't need to because you have legitimate excuses, but I do think it's productive. It's kind of like being dissatisfied with your art. I don't trust artists that think everything they do is great.
Oh no.
There's something wrong there. You know what I mean? like
Yeah.
like it,
Yeah.
you should see flaws. Not that you have to hate your art the way I hate my art. That's the other extreme. But
That's definitely different.
but but you need to be dissatisfied to some level or you're never going to grow. And it's the same thing if you set goals and fail, okay, you don't have to beat yourself up forever, but you should be like, oh man, I got to do better next time.
Yeah.
And you're certainly displaying that attitude, which I think is good. And like I said, the I got to keep moving forward, and if I can't do this, I'll do that. And like that's always a good thing of, the drawing's not coming together, I'll try the writing's not working, I'll do my video.
Mhm.
That I applaud the way you dealt with a crappy week.
Well, thank you. Thank you. We've talked about this before too. There's like kind of a guilt that'll settle in even when you're intentionally trying to like have a day off.
Yes. Yep.
I think it's even like that, enough time passes that at some point you're gonna snap and be like, all right, look, I can't do this anymore. Tomorrow is the day. I'm gonna get it done.
But we were gonna get ice cream. No ice cream.
No. Smack. Slap the ice cream out of your hand.
Well, the one thing you did get done, which wasn't necessarily on your list, but you did that cool picture of Sissy. Why don't you share
Yeah.
that for those that haven't seen it?
Oh yeah, here, let's see.
I mean, you destroyed your hand doing it. You might as well.
Right. Might as well get something out of it. Oh, where is it? Did I only?
He's
Okay.
looking for it, and
You
I'm
should
gonna
talk about your stuff, and I'll find a way to
Okay.
find it.
He's looking for his picture of Sissy. So I set myself some semi-modest goals because I knew we would only have 6 days, and I knew I had some things going on those days. So my goals, which I did hit, thankfully, but I didn't have a broken hand, to be fair, were to do 30 minutes of work on the Horror 4, my independent kaiju comic, to finish the inks and color and put up for pre-order on Etsy my new print of Shin Godzilla, and
Nice.
to start work on my next print, however much I could. So going through the week, Tuesday, I did finish. Actually, let me pull up. I have a little slideshow here.
Ooh.
No, yeah, normally I was. Oops, I got to share that screen though. I'm just looking at it. No one else. Screen share.
We do our best. We try.
All right, I believe I'm doing it correctly now. Can you see?
Yep, I can see it.
Awesome. So
Oh, cool.
this is where I was. Oops, this is where I was last week. This is just a photo of the inks of. Oh wait, it's not working. I have a slideshow going, but you're just seeing everything up at once.
Right. Yeah. All I see is the full. Oh, I saw it for a second.
All right, let me try one more thing, and then I'll give up on this.
Okay.
Let me
Now I
screen
see you.
share. Oh, I got it. Okay, I didn't have the application open. There we go.
Ah, there it
So
is. Okay.
this is where I was last week. This is the inks on the Shin Godzilla. I had done it digitally, pencils, and from here I needed to go forward, and so that is the finished inks. You can see I had to finish the leg and then all the background stuff, and I did that
Oh, sweet.
Tuesday, actually after our show, and it took me about an hour and a half to get from that to that. I thought it would be less time, which was foolish, but
Mhm.
uh, and then I went and saw the movie. I talked about the riff tracks, and then when I got the other thing I had to do, I got some work from a company, a corporation I work for that I do characters for, and they hit me up for some last minute work, so I ended up having to do that
Oh, nice.
Tuesday and a little bit Wednesday. It's not, yeah. I mean, it was nice to get a little bit of money, but it was also like, oh, I didn't expect this. So Tuesday, I finished the inks were finished. Then Wednesday, I wanted to start working on the colors. I wanted to scan it and do that kind of stuff, but I couldn't get. I don't have a scanner big enough, and I didn't have the car. So what I would normally do, and I know I switched the screen. I did that on purpose. What I would normally do is go to the print shop down the road. But since I didn't have a car, I'd have to walk to the print shop down the road, and I don't mind doing that, but it would take me an hour ish each way, and I'd probably stop and get a soda, and I said, you know what? Instead of doing that, I'll wait until later, scan it tonight, and I will not waste that hour or two of time going there and back. I will start working on the next print. And
Cool.
this is what I started doing. I actually had a couple pencil sketches first, but the idea I have is for a 4 character print, still 11 by 17, of Godzilla, Jet Jaguar, who's a hero, Megalon, and Gigan, who are enemies. They're all together in a movie, and it was one of my favorite movies as a kid. It's kind of what got me into Godzilla.
Oh, sweet.
So and the other 2 I did are from the Heisei, which is 90s, and the modern era. And this one is what's called Showa, which is like the classic era. So like 3 new prints from 3 different eras. Um, and I liked this format. I actually didn't show you the pencil sketches, but I had originally had it like landscape, and I did this one portrait horizontal. But
Hmm.
when I put it into the 11 by 17 format, which is what you're seeing here, I didn't like how little you could see of the other 2 monsters. So I adjusted it, went back to the landscape. It's a little less dynamic. This looks a little bit more like a comic book cover, but I felt that I could show more of the monsters here. And Q saying she loves the layout. I do too, but it's just I don't know. It's still a work in progress. I was talking to somebody in the chat, by the way, for those watching after. And then I took it from there and I kind of changed it a little bit. You can see I made them bigger and I started putting a little more detail in. And then I got to about there. This is kind of where I'm at. I wanted to do the other layout, but I think this just shows more of what's going on because like I said, I wanted to have the 2 evil characters in front.
Yeah.
And I did it. So basically, this is something I did over most of Wednesday, and the reference and all the roughs and everything. I think it was like 2 hours to get the roughs to this point, and I spent about an hour on reference because I had to get it for 4 different characters. And then at the end of the day, I went and got the scan of Shin Godzilla. So it was a bummer because I got all this extra work on this print, which I wasn't sure I would get, and this is where I got to for the week, and I'm pretty happy with it and further than I thought. So I did an economical use of my time, but the result was that then I was kind of pressed for time when it came to coloring Shin Godzilla, which is what I'm going to
Hmm.
get into next. I will share once again application window. So I had the scan, so I started doing the color flatting. And one of the things that makes this character difficult is he's
Ooh, yeah.
mostly like blackish, but he's got all this red, muscle slash fire stuff under him. And it took a long time to get
I
in
can
there and
only
do that.
imagine.
Right here, this is an hour, like
Yeah.
just to get it this far. And so I have a couple process pictures, and this is what I worked on over the course next week. I had an hour. This is 3 hours where I had him mostly done. And I put in the energy effect coming from his mouth, but I didn't put the glows and stuff. So then this is 5 hours. At 5 hours, I went in, put some more shading. I put all the glow around him, and I started filling in the flats for the background and stuff. And then finally done last night, 7 hours. This is the final piece.
Nice. Cool,
So
dude.
thank you. So it was weird though, because if you look between this one, I put a lot of color and detail in these buildings, especially the one on the left,
Hmm.
and then I like covered up with smoke.
But
And
it,
then
it still looks good though. It matters.
yeah, you kind of have to, but it's the same way. Let me go back. Like a lot of the detail I have in this version, when I put the energy in, a lot of that gets covered up too. And then when I go here, I put shading and light. So like I end up doing steps that I do like 100% of the work, and then you end up seeing like 20% of the work. But I feel like if I don't do it that way, it doesn't come out as well as I'd like. And
Yeah.
so this, like I said, I worked on it on and off throughout the week, and then last night we went to see the play, and it was way longer than I thought it was going to be. We didn't get home until like midnight, and then we had like dinner like super late because we went to the play at like 7. And we're like, oh well, we'll eat after the play, and like so then we ate dinner at like midnight.
Oh, geez.
So, but then this wasn't done. I was about here. And so last night I stayed up till 4 in the morning to finish it, partially because I said I would for the show, but partially because I'm leaving for New Jersey tomorrow, and I wanted to send these prints in to have ready for the Godzilla Fest, G Fest that I'm going to in 3 weeks or whatever.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, look at that. Just like the Destroyer last week,
Hey.
there's a pre-order up. The Destroyer had been up for over a week. This is only up until midnight tonight.
Oh,
The
wow.
way that it's on my Etsy store, you can just look up Etsy Gazbot, and if you're interested in it, it's $10 until midnight tonight. After that, it goes up to $20 because this is the pre-order for this, and I
Wow.
will have this. Now I wanted to have that other print that I was working on, the Jet Jaguar Megalon one, ready for G Fest as well. I don't know if I will. It's not done right now. I don't know how much work I can get done, before then.
Yeah.
And so, which brings us to today, where I was getting everything ready and realized I never did my 30 minutes on the Horror A4.
I was going to ask about that actually.
Yeah, I did it about 45 minutes ago. I
Oh,
basically,
nice.
at like 3 o'clock, I'm like, okay, let me start doing this. So let me pull
Cool.
that up.
At
So
least
this
you
is
got it in.
I did. I here's the thing. In my notes, I had written like what I had to do. So I had RA4 and I had 40 minutes. I'm like, oh, I did it. And they're like, no, that was that from last week. So like I realized I thought I had done it. So these are the panels I had done last week. I had started the one on the left. So I finished that. Again, these are rough pencils. These aren't inks, but so I finished that and I started the one on the right, which is the mech getting knocked over by the horror who in the previous panels laying down. But I didn't like that pose, so I redid the pose. It's not as done, but I thought it captured the action better. Like it made more sense because we're looking up. Like he could be in that position, but I don't know. I just thought there's more energy to this one. But finishing that and doing that, that was like 30, 40 minutes. So that was my time in the Horror Ray 4, which again isn't a lot, but any progress is better than no progress, which is what we
Yeah,
learned from these
absolutely.
making comics. So as far as I'm concerned, I hit all my goals. Maybe very last minute, but I hit them.
Yeah, no, it's awesome.
So we both kind of normally it's like, hey, what did you get done and what are your challenges? We both kind of talked about our challenges a little bit already. So I don't know if we need to go back into that. And I did one of my challenges from last time was keeping better track of my time, which I have started doing. It
Okay.
hasn't helped me yet, but I am like, oh, I am cognizant of like I've already spent 3 hours on this and the coloring took 7 hours. Like,
Yeah.
so I'm making like a little mini database, although really it's just a note on my phone.
Hey, that's so good. I need
Yeah.
to get into a better habit of doing that myself too. When I'm actually working, is documenting how long it takes, so that
Right.
hopefully when we do these check-ins, I can actually, estimate stuff that I can complete in the time that we have.
Yeah,
That tends to
totally.
be a problem. That wasn't the case this week, but definitely very bad at estimating how long it's going to take me to do something.
I'm inconsistently bad at it.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm right on the nose and sometimes I'm way off. And it depends on what I'm working on. Like I know exactly how long it takes me to do like a caricature of somebody because I've done it so
Sure.
many times. And there's less variables. But even just saying like I'm gonna do an 11 by 17 picture of Godzilla. Depending on which Godzilla, depending on is he fighting someone, depending on am I inking it traditionally, like there's a lot of variables. So I might say, oh, that'll take me 15 hours, and that
Right.
might be true but for what I have in my head. But then once I get into it, it might be, oh no, it was 25 hours because of these variables. So that's what I struggle with, and that's why I'm trying to pin down, like, okay, the coloring on this took this, and the coloring,
Hmm.
it'll probably take a while before I have any usable data, but I'm beginning the
Sure.
collection.
It depends on like what you're doing too. Like if you're doing a similar thing over and over and over again over a period of
Right.
time, you can really judge that better because you have a better grasp on it because you're doing it constantly.
That's definitely true. And when I see certain people who, I mean, I feel like I specialize in my art, but I still draw a lot of different stuff. But there are
Mhm.
people I see at shows or that I know personally that, well, I don't want to say anybody specifically. So let's say they're a Godzilla artist, for example, and it's like, but they're only a Godzilla artist. That's all they do. They don't have a comic book. They
Mhm.
don't do, Power Rangers. There's just Godzilla, and they've drawn every version of Godzilla and every Godzilla monster 10 times, and so they could bust them out of their head in like a half hour, and that's
Yeah.
impressive. I can't do that because I have to look at reference, and this might be the first time I've ever drawn it. And while I've drawn a lot of big monsters, it's not it's a specialty of mine, but it's not my only thing I do. So
Yeah.
yeah,
That's actually something I've noticed with drawing my own characters too. Actually, you got to draw them over and over again to be able to get good at them to draw them,
yeah,
quickly. This costume,
and
for example,
consistent.
for Sissy is complicated. I'm learning that the more that I try to draw her, I can't draw her very quickly. Like I can get the gesture and everything, but then going in and detailing everything that I've got, that actually takes
Did
some
you find
time.
Did you find the image
Oh
of
yeah,
her? Why don't you put that
I
up?
did.
Oh,
Uh,
I didn't see it. I'm sorry.
oh no, I didn't put it up.
Oh, because it's relevant to what we're talking about too. Oh
What?
yeah, the
No,
little
I
video.
did.
Hey
Yeah.
oh,
I
yeah,
posted it from Instagram, so I thought that I took a picture, but I didn't actually take a picture.
that's fine. People can still get the idea.
Yeah, but yeah, there's a lot there, and even with what I did here, I abstracted it quite a bit. Like if I
Mhm.
did a close up, there's a lot more detail that got left out, but
Right.
it's fun to draw, and I am getting quicker at it. But
I
all the
do.
more reason to do my character sheets and to keep drawing her,
Sure.
so that it goes
Well,
quicker.
I do think character sheets are helpful, and I think I usually do at least one solid image of each character.
Hmm.
But I don't. What you do that I should do that I don't do as much is like turnarounds and expression sheets and things like that. I feel like I don't do that enough.
Mm,
But also with like how complicated that costume is, I think what'll happen when you keep working on her, you'll just start to memorize it, and it'll still take a little bit of time to actually draw it, but you won't have to go to where does this strap go, how many plates are on the arm, like you do it
right.
15 and because like I think about that with like professional like Marvel and DC artists that are doing like everybody on the X-Men or the Spider-Man. And it's like, man, like I guess after you've drawn 2 or 3 issues, you could just do it all out of your head. You know, maybe you
Yeah.
need to look up reference for something new or an anatomy or whatever, but like they can't be looking up reference for the costume every time. Like
No
it would be
way.
impossible. So, which is funny because I occasionally get comic book work, not from Marvel or DC. And sometimes it's a full book, sometimes it's like 3 pages, 1 page, whatever. And I have started to think that I need to like prorate my comic work,
Hmm.
because if I'm doing one, like the first page of any comic is going to be the hardest because I'm designing the characters, I'm figuring out the environment, and it's the
Right.
first time I'm drawing most of that stuff. Once I do 3, 4, 5 pages, it starts to get easier because I already have established certain things and I've drawn that character. So if I get someone that wants me to do like a 22-page comic, I usually just charge a simple page rate because the prep work will go into doing a 22-page comic.
Sure.
But if I do a 3-page comic, I have to do like the same prep work pretty much, or a
Hmm.
1-page comic. And so I haven't done this yet, but a few times I've been like, oh, well, my page rate is this. And I've done 2 pages. And I think I'm going to say my page rate is this if we're doing a full book. If not, then it's higher because it takes so long to do page one
Huh.
that,
Yeah.
yeah.
I've actually a couple times I've been approached to do a book. I've either turned it down or it hasn't gone through. But what I started doing was because I'm coming from a background in doing a lot of concept art stuff for film and for games, and so I'm naturally kind of already ready to tell them like, well, if something needs to be designed, it's going to be this, you know.
Right.
And so once I started getting more into comics and getting approached to do comics, that's actually how I put it, is that, you know, if everything already exists and you have character sheets and stuff, then I would just charge a page rate for the pages. But if I actually have to create anything, that's a whole different thing.
That's interesting. I don't disagree with the pricing that you're saying. Oops, I just accidentally started a video on my phone. Sorry, it's Jeff Lafferty. um,
With
I
guest
agree.
appearance by Jeff Lafferty.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying. You should certainly charge for design work, stuff like that. Like I said, if I'm doing a full book, I will sometimes just consider that part of the cost.
Hmm.
And that's an individual choice. There's nothing wrong with saying I need extra money.
Sure.
And it also depends on how much freedom you get. Because if they're like, hey, here's a couple notes, design it however you want, which I did the book Kid Switch with my friend Keith Gleason, who's the writer. He gave me very few notes. He's like, you design them. It's like, here's the ages and the genders and whatever. So that wasn't a big deal. But if someone's like, okay, I need Aztec armor from this specific period, and
Mm.
here's a reference, it's like, okay, this is going to be hard and it's going to be
Sure.
fitting your vision as opposed to just doing what I want. But the other thing is, I have found a phenomenon where I've been on both sides of this, where somebody has paid to get characters, backgrounds, whatever designed, and then that person doesn't do the comic. And that's kind of challenging in a different way. I've been paid to design some characters, and then I don't work on the book. And for me, it's great. I get, because designing characters is fun, and I get paid, and then whatever, let somebody else deal with it. But if I was coming to a project and they're like, it's one thing if they've had a few issues and they're like, we want it to match a style. But if it's like no issues exist,
Hmm.
here's a bunch of characters that someone else designed, I now have to match that style. And maybe they made choices I didn't. Maybe I like it. Maybe I don't. Maybe they're a better artist than I am. So there's challenges there that, even though theoretically, oh, well, you would have had to pay to have me do it, it's almost like, why pay a different artist
Yeah.
than the one you're going to use? And so I don't know. I don't know what the answer there is. For me, the answer is don't hire someone to do designs that isn't going to work on the book. And if you're
Right.
hiring someone to work on the book, they may want money for the designs, which I think is fair. But it is a phenomenon that I've seen many, many times. And I imagine it might come from having a friend or a colleague, coworker that's willing to do some free designs for you. And
Mm.
then, but they don't want to do a whole book. But then, yeah, again, it's sort of like, is that really helping? I mean, if they
Yeah.
give it to me and say you could do your own version, like if somebody gives you a picture of Batman and says, here's Batman, do your own version, that's different than here is Neil Adams Batman. This is what we want it to look like.
Right. Yeah.
So I don't know. I also wonder sometimes, because you get a lot of writers that can't draw and don't have money necessarily, and they
Right.
kind of do like a quick doodle and they find $100 and pay somebody to just do one image of that character and like, oh, it exists, it's real.
Right.
And then they save some more money, or things get better financially for them, and then they're ready to do a book. But they have that image that they've been looking at for 2 years that is their character and they don't
Right.
want to change it. So I sympathize, but I think, if possible, this is to all potential creators and writers out there, if possible, have the artist that's going to work on the book be the designer. And if you're the artist working on the book, try to be the designer.
Yeah.
That's my advice.
Yeah, I agree. And if you are the designer, I would highly recommend getting paid for that work because
Oh,
that's
yeah.
a whole different field,
Yes. Yeah.
and it's intense, and a lot of people assume that that's part of the deal, and they won't want to pay you for it. But that's also, the reason I even thought about it in the first place is because that's the branding of that book. You're really
Yeah.
going above and beyond just storytelling at that point. You could be potentially creating something iconic for that company. You know.
Right. Well, the book I was talking about, Kid Switch, I only did the first issue. They hired a second artist to do the second issue. And I think something happened there. I don't know what, but the second issue hasn't come out yet. I know they still plan on, like, they have other books coming out, like, so it's not, this is his only book. But I'm digressing. I did the designs. I had very little input in a good way.
Hmm.
And the one thing I said was, how about this? I'll do the designs and we'll include that in the cost of doing the book. And that was my choice. Like, you other people might want to make a different choice. And it's also, I'm friends with the guy, so I was giving him a little bit of a deal. I said, but since I'm doing all the designs, I want 1% financial ownership.
Oh, cool.
It was a work for hire, so theoretically, I don't own any of it. And it's meaningless, that 1%. And I no creative control. The only reason I did that is if this turns out to be the next Ben 10, if it gets a
Sure.
movie, if something happens, I own 1%, which will get me a little bit of money.
Not
So
bad.
it's kind of, it's meaningless unless this becomes huge. And if it becomes huge, I will be super happy I did it.
Yeah. No, that's
Um,
a really good fail safe. That's also fair to them too, because if it doesn't get huge, they're not really paying you a whole lot.
right. Yeah.
Not like asking
I've
too
even
much.
said, like, you don't have to pay me that 1% for like the 300 books you sold. I'm not, like, I don't need
Yeah.
that 12 cents or whatever. It's only if it gets big where you're getting huge money where 1% actually means something.
Yeah.
Um,
That's smart. I like that.
and that also, like I keep saying, I roll it into the cost of the book. Some clients, some writers or other clients might not be so versed in business and get real twitchy about hourly rates or itemized lists and things like that.
Hmm.
So while you're certainly entitled to get paid for designs, some people might get like, oh, I got to pay for the designs too. And if you think that's going to be a problem, whatever your page rate is, like, let's say you get $100 a page, maybe you say, okay, I'm going to do all the designs. Well, I'll say 115. And after
Yeah.
22 pages, that'll cover, so you could roll it into the overall cost, or, whatever. If the project was going to be $1,000, you say, okay, $1,200, whatever you think is fair,
Hmm.
but you don't have to actually break it down and tell them that if you think they're going to be uncomfortable with that. And that's a call when you're talking to them, because some
Oh,
some
yeah.
clients want to know and go, oh, so if I don't have you design them, then I can save some money. Like, they like to know. Others just want a price and don't want to be like nickel and dimed, as they call it. So
Yeah.
you
That's
deserve
so
to.
true. I've worked with people that are on both sides of that spectrum. Some people love when you have an itemized list, and if you give them an itemized list, that almost justifies whatever you want to charge them because they could see exactly how the money is being
Right.
spent. Others, you're right, they just want a flat rate and they don't want to think about any of that stuff. And
Yeah.
yeah,
And I don't know how to know that other than getting your instincts from
yeah,
talking to a lot of clients.
oh,
Like, because it's like,
so
because if you
tough.
ask someone, you can't be like, "Are you going to be mad if I give you," like that? You can't. It's not a question you could ask.
Yeah, yeah. And there are
um,
different personality types are different to work with if it goes over and you need more money too. The one that
yeah,
wants the flat rate is a lot harder to approach
uh,
about why the cost has gone up.
yeah. If you have a flat rate ever, it's sad to say, because, like, I hate to penalize people, but you almost have to inflate the price a little bit, to
Yeah,
where if I know I'm not going to get any extra money for revisions or whatever, or if I do, it'll be a fight, and I want $1,000, that's what I need, and that's what I think is fair. I might say 12, $1,300, which if it was itemized, I wouldn't. But it's
hmm,
like, well, if it goes over a little bit, if there's a problem, I won't be mad because I put that extra money in. The downside is if it goes perfectly fine, they ended up paying a couple extra $100. I'm not in the business of trying to rip people off or take extra money, but
yeah,
it's like, I got to protect myself. And so, you pay the extra cost as a client for not being willing to, like, itemize things and break things down a little bit more.
yeah. I mean, and that's fair. It happens in business all over the place, and it sucks, but somehow these costs have to get covered. And I mean,
Yeah.
if your phone provider can charge you a restocking fee or a you're in the
Right.
store fee and cardboard box fee, or in Chicago we have plastic bag fees now.
Oh,
Um,
we have that in San Jose too.
oh, you do?
Yeah, you don't get a bag at the store, and unless you want to buy it, and it goes
Yeah,
towards whatever. Yeah.
there you go. So we're
Um.
not the most evil people in the world.
Yeah, but I guess the takeaway lesson, whatever, is communication is good. Don't cheat yourself, and if possible, get everything in writing ahead of time.
Yes. And so we went off on a little bit of a tangent,
We
but
did.
that was good.
Yeah.
So,
So what are you going to try to accomplish next two
okay,
weeks?
sure. Oh, yeah, that's right. Should we? I don't think we told
Oh,
anybody what's
we
going
didn't.
on.
Okay, the reason we're having it Monday instead of Tuesday is I'm leaving for a trip for New Jersey for 9 days starting tomorrow morning. We're not going to try to do it while I'm on the road with my iPad from my mother-in-law's internet that maybe, who knows. So we're going to wait and just and also Mike's hand is going to be hurting this week. So who knows how much he'll be able to get done. So we're going to reconvene Tuesday, the 10th. Is that correct? Same
Sure.
time,
Yeah, that
4
sounds right.
p.m. Pacific. I believe it's Tuesday the 10th. If it's not Tuesday the 10th, it's whatever Tuesday is closest to the 10th. So it'll be 2 weeks from now. So it's longer, but both of us have a lot of stuff going on. So our goals probably won't reflect the 2 weeks, such as Mike is going to tell us now what he's going to try to do.
All right. So, I'm injured. I'm not sure if I mentioned this here or before, but I did go to the doctor today. He wants me to stop doing what I was doing that was hurting this for up to a week. So I'm, as much as I don't want to, I'm not drawing this week because this really sucks, and I want this to feel better. At that point, if it's still hurting, I got to go back to the doctor next Monday, and then we'll be talking about getting X-rays and all that kind of stuff. Hopefully, it
Fun.
doesn't go to that point, but if just in case it does, then I'd be trying to get to the hospital the following week then. So
Right.
there's a lot of like variables up in the air as far as this thing goes right now. So I can't draw, but I could do other things. I'm going to try to record my next review videos. I'm actually completely out of recordings for all of those now, and I have a small stack of samples that I haven't opened yet. I'm going to be looking into other printers that I've gotten leads for. A number of people have reached out to me and given me names
Cool.
of, a surprising amount of printers, and some that are actually really obscure that you wouldn't know of unless somebody who knew them told somebody. And so people like that have been coming to me too. So I'm going to be doing reviews on some real ma and pa kind of print shops too.
That's great.
So
You're
I'll
going to
probably
become
start.
the authority on print
Yeah, right.
shops.
The printer guy.
Yeah. And then years from now, I'll be like, did you know he did comics too? Like,
Right. But he never printed any of them. It's pretty ironic. So I'm going to try and reach out to them, at least write an email, get that going, get that moving so that,
Right.
I can rebuild my my supply of videos to edit. Because after the Print Ninja one goes up, which is my most fun video that I've done yet, oh my God, it's so fun.
If you don't have like a,
Oh,
I'll be
I
upset.
do.
Okay.
An extreme version of that. So that's like the main thing that I know that I can do.
Right.
It really sucks to use the mouse too, but I was able to do it for quite a few hours, so that's something that I can do.
Right.
I really want to do something artistic, like visually artistic. So I'm gonna try to do watercolors. Just because it's just practice and I'm just learning how the paint works right now. So I don't
Yeah.
need to make the most beautiful strokes, and I can at least hold it.
Yeah.
It's weird, but I can get it on the
I don't
paper,
I don't know if you ever did this, but I definitely had art classes where we weren't painting anything. It was like tone, like start with the darkest and
Right.
then do like 10 gradients or mix two together. Like, so all that
Yeah.
stuff, you don't have to have fine motor control at
Right.
all. So that'd be great stuff to practice with.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure most of the tutorials that I have right now, like the beginner stuff, that's what they're going through. They're going through how to
Nice.
make gradients and how to make the paint, do different things, and so that should be something that I should do and at least keep me, happy that I'm doing
Yeah.
something visual.
Gotcha.
If all else fails, like if really like if the hand thing gets to be too much and
Yeah.
doing any of this gets to be whatever, then I'm going to default to writing. I'm not really like in a mode to be writing right now, but I have a lot of writing that I could do for
Right.
Space Cat, for the next issue of Sisyphean Complex. I mean,
Yeah.
there's plenty of writing to do. So if I honestly am having such a hard time with this, then I could at least do that. And I know that I
That's
could do
great.
that because I don't type like a normal person. I'm like need poker, so
Right. I
fine.
do the same thing.
Yeah.
That's great though. But that's that same attitude I was talking about before of like, well, I have to keep moving. I'll just this then okay, well something.
Exactly. Right. I'll do my taxes, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Cool.
that's my plan. We'll see how it goes.
Awesome. I mean, not awesome because your hand is messed up, but awesome that you're going to try to do things.
Something will get done.
Yes.
How about you, my friend? What are you going to try to do? Are you going to be able to work at all while you're gone, or?
I don't know. I mean, I
Okay.
usually bring my iPad with me that I could draw on, and I usually bring paper and pencil and stuff. Sometimes I can get some stuff done, other times I can't. We're only going to be there for about 9 days. And here's the thing. I know I will be able to work on the plane ride. That's the thing. Is like I'll be sitting there, so I can get something done there and back. It's hard for me to get finished work done, but I could definitely get something done. And then I will have, I think, 3.5 days where I'll actually be home before we meet again. So what I'm going to say is this is what I'm going to try to do. I'm going to try to finish the rough pencils for page 4 of the Horror 4 that I've been working on. There's like 2.5 panels left of that. So I want to try to finish that. And then I want to do studies for the new print, the Megalon print I was showing before, because I talked about this with the Destroya print and the Shin Godzilla print, where like I have a tendency to kind of look at a couple reference and then jump in without doing studies so that I'm like figuring stuff out on the page.
Oh yeah.
And I could do that a little bit easier if it's a human because I have a basic understanding of anatomy and I've drawn humans. But all of these monsters have weird anatomy and pieces on their faces and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I found already that as I'm working, I'm like, what does Jet Jaguar's face really look like? And I'm doing like a side back angle of Megalon. And I'm like, well, he has a pincer. But then, so what I think before I go any further on that one, because I kind of have the layout sort of where I like it, I'm going to do some design studies of all 4 of the characters in that. And again,
Oh,
that's not
cool.
finished work. So I could do that on the plane. I'll bring some reference, I'll download it to my iPad first. And so I want to finish the page, the pencils for Hari 4, do design studies of all 4 of those kaiju. And then if I have the time, I also will do the next print I'm going to do will be Power Rangers, because after Godzilla Fest, I'm going to be doing a Power Rangers event. And I have a Green Ranger with the Dragon Zord print, and I want to do a White Ranger with the Tiger Zord print. So
Nice.
I'll do some design studies of the White Ranger a little bit, but I pretty much know how he works. But the Tiger Zord, again, just like the Kaiju, there's like weird little buttons and the arms don't
Yeah.
go in the way you'd think. So I'll do some design sketches of those. If at all possible, I would love to get the 4-person Megalon print done in time for Godzilla Fest. So that's like a stretch goal, I'm not holding myself to that.
Yeah.
But basically, once I get back and we have the show, like 3 or 4 days later, I'm leaving again for Chicago. And I know. And then when I get back from Chicago, like 3 days later, I'm leaving for San Diego Comic
Oh
Con. So
my
this
God,
month is insanity.
dude.
So this is the beginning of the end of my sanity.
Oh, yeah, seriously.
So I don't know how much I'll be able to do on the trip. Probably very little because it's we're going for a wedding and there's a lot of family and stuff. But on the plane ride there and back, and for a few days when I get home, I should be able to at least accomplish what I just said, if not more.
That's good. That sounds pretty reasonable because, like you said, you're gonna have those 3 days. So, like at the very least, you just cram those 3 days for those 3 things.
Yes, except I'm going to be getting home and I will have to get ready for the Chicago trip, which
Yeah.
is more than just packing because I have the show set up, but it won't be the normal show setup I normally do because I have a new show setup first of all, and I have to figure out how to pack it with the weight and size restrictions, and I'm gonna have to practice setting it up and breaking it down. So at least one full day is gonna be me practicing for the Chicago show. So I'm rating off a
That
whole
makes
day for
sense.
that.
Yeah, and
Um,
plus you're going to be getting home, and I know anytime I travel anywhere, that day coming home is
there's
never.
yeah,
I can't plan
yeah.
that. You don't know how
So
you're going to feel.
right, and so you might be right that I might be able to blast through a lot of stuff in those 2 days, but I didn't want to give myself
Yeah, yeah. All right,
yeah.
we'll go easy on you this time. You've been pretty easy on
Ox
me.
Ox in the chat is saying we've definitely spoke about he's asking about my Destroya and Shin prints, which I did discuss earlier, the Shin Godzilla pre-order, and the Destroya is still up for pre-order, both of them done midnight tonight. So if you want them for
Free
half price,
deal, half price.
half price, and if you get them both, then the shipping is better, which a nice little Ox man did. So thank you to him. A nice little Ox man. I don't think that doesn't describe nice, yes, but little, I'm not so sure. He's a warrior.
He is an ox, though,
He is
and
an, he's
a
a samurai
samurai.
ox. Yeah.
Yes.
Um, well, why don't we open it up to questions and answers to anybody that has any out there? So I'm going to say, if anybody's in the chat that has a question or comment, concern, whatever, throw it out there. But before we get to that, we'll give them a minute to put those in. Last week, we were talking about artists that we like and what works would we recommend and stuff like that. And I had thought maybe I'd show up with a stack of comics that I recommended.
Oh, cool.
I didn't. I
Oh,
did something. I was because I was looking at my bookshelf and I was like, what books should I, and I realized I'm going to recommend a series of books. Here's an artist I like. This is Walt Simonson.
oh,
But
yeah.
I'm not recommending Walt Simonson any of his particular works. I mean, if I had to, I'd say X Factor and Fantastic Four is what I like. Most people like Thor, but I'm recommending this series of books, which is Modern Masters.
Those
It's
are awesome.
it's mostly comic book artists, and what it'll do is you can see it shows on the back all the different books he's worked on, and then inside it's interviews with how he got into art, how he works, and a lot of like raw pencils and inks, and it goes through his entire career, and it does a good job of having finished work and in progress work and tools he uses. And then, again, here's another artist like Kevin McGuire. I would recommend Justice League International for Kevin McGuire. And again, inside you could see his old work, and a lot of them will have like, here's a drawing I did when I was like 5, and it's garbage, and like I think, oh yeah, this isn't even that bad, but this was like a tryout page he did for DC, which is still pretty good, but not as good as he was later. And this, I don't know how many books in this series, 50. I mean, most famous comic artists you could think of will have one of these. So if you have an artist you like, get this book. It'll help you understand how they work. It'll give you a better understanding of the history of their work. It'll show you their process. It'll get you in their head of how they think. And if you don't have a favorite artist, look at these books. Look at one that has a cover you like. Buy it. And I've got about 20 of these. They're great. And full price, I think they're like $15.
Yeah.
But I only bought a few at full price. I go to bookstores, I see them all the time, half price, $5. You go to a comic store, they're clearing them out. Like look on Amazon. But these are, it's the whole package. It's a little bit how to draw. It's a little bit how to be a comic artist. It's a little bit how to exist in the world as an artist. It's a little bit biography, and they're more fun to me than like a normal textbook of art, because it's got a little bit of everything. So that is my recommendation. Modern Masters. Yeah.
Great recommendation too. Those are amazing.
Thank you.
Very nice. We have a question.
Okay.
Yadis Melkins, are there any shows or movies that you watch to get yourself motivated to work on your art and comics?
I guess I'll go first. Not usually. Not usually. No. The exception is not for my comics at all. But that doesn't mean I don't get inspired by things I watch, and like little things might sink in there. But if I'm doing a Godzilla print, a lot of times I will make a point of watching the movie that before, like even if I've seen it, just to refresh myself. So, if I'm doing a Godzilla vs. King Kong print, I'll watch that movie, not even to psych myself up necessarily, but just to get a feel for the character and how it moves. Even though you look up stills, it's better to like see the personality of it, But for my comic, not so much. I'll sometimes listen to music. Music gets me amped up more to work on stuff than anything else. And going with prints, like I did a lot of Ninja Turtle Misfits prints, and I listened to a lot of Misfits. When I did the Danzig one, I listened to a lot of Danzig, and but music hypes me up more. And with TV and movies, like with my book, even though it's a kaiju comic, I take broad strokes from Godzilla, Ultraman, things like that. But honestly, I think I get a lot more from like sitcoms and like dramas, because I'm really interested in like the interpersonal stuff. So those movies, while I love them, the people are not well written. You know what I mean? They're very basic cardboard cutout. So, like I like Akira, for example, and my book is nothing like Akira except for some of the character interactions between the kids in Akira and the kids in my book. So that's like the most direct, but it's not like I sat down and watched Akira and said, now I'm going to make a comic. It's like when I'm making the comic, I thought about what kid characters did I find to be realistic and interesting. And I drift to things like Akira, where they're, kind of mean to each other a little bit, which seems more accurate, So that's the best answer I give. How about you?
Cool. For me, it's actually kind of the opposite. I actually really do get super deep. Anything that I'm consuming, I want it to be at least similar to what it is that I'm trying to accomplish. And if I'm like, especially in the writing mode and the design and development mode of like a project, I just immerse myself. Like, for example, for Sisyphean Complex, like the only kind of comics that I've been reading have either been straight out of Heavy Metal Magazine, just because that's the magazine I'm pitching to. So I want to be immersed in that world. I want to be immersed in that aesthetic, everything that's, they're willing to publish. I want to be surrounded by it.
That makes sense.
As far as watching things, I watched a lot of Aeon Flux. Aeon Flux is actually a big inspiration for this. It's sort of my, I think you and I have talked about this before, about fan art and fan fiction, that kind of thing, where it's like, instead of doing a fan fiction, why don't you just do your version of that thing?
Absolutely.
That's how this started. And as with everything, something small gets bigger and it becomes different. And so this sort of started out as like a what if Aeon Flux went in a different direction. And now it's like unrecognizable that it had anything to do with the Flux, except for maybe some of the basic elements.
Right.
Um, and a lot of different spy movies, specifically like exploitation spy flicks from like the 60s and the 70s, in like Flint, a little bit of James Bond, anything with like a femme fatale kind of character. That's like
Right.
the stuff that I've been really just, and I'll watch it on repeat too. It's at a point where it's on in the background, and I know all this stuff like the back of my hand now. But yeah, that really like engages me. And if I were writing a fantasy, then I'd have a playlist of nothing but like Lord of the Rings and Legend and oh,
Right.
hey, there's a cat.
That's
Uh,
funny. I mean, it. What you're saying actually makes a lot more sense than the way I do it.
hmm,
I guess I sort of do it, but backwards. Like when
hmm,
I'm ready to work on something, I think about what did I like and what inspired me. Because as much as I try to get out of this headspace, and as much as you're right about like, yeah, just do your own version of a thing, it's going to be different, whatever. I still struggle with that immature. I don't want to copy. I
hmm,
don't want to
hmm.
use someone else's idea. And I mean, and I don't want to copy, but there's like a weird paranoia about it that I've had since high school because the other
Yeah.
kids are like, oh, you're going to copy, and I know it's foolish, but I can't quite shake it.
Hmm.
So while I'm not gonna, it's not like I'm not gonna watch monster movies when I'm working on monster comic. I I don't actively avoid them, but I would feel like if I watched a movie and then wrote some pages of my comic and it ended up being similar to what I just watched, I wouldn't be able to use it. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
if I
Oh,
watched that
yeah.
movie 3 years ago and some half remembered sideways version of that works into my work, then that to me that's the difference between an influence and a copy.
Hmm.
But what you're doing makes a lot, especially with Heavy Metal Magazine. You're immersing yourself like this is what goes, and like your way makes more sense. But there's just some leftover paranoia from childhood that I can't quite shake
Yeah.
that prevents me from doing that.
I feel the same way too, actually, and that's another reason why I do it. Because the on flux thing, for example, I before I started the design work on this comic,
Mhm.
I had done like one sketch of Sissy, and I thought, this is awesome. I love this. This is exactly the kind of costume that I want. It's like it's the whole sexy, scantily clad thing, but functional. But
Mhm.
in the back of my mind, I'm going, this is so Eon Flux, like to the point where I felt like I have just ripped off Eon Flux and put her in a short haircut. And so
Right.
I went through the entire season of all the shorts, all the two seasons that they had, and I didn't find a single costume that looked like Sissy's costume. But something was telling me that this was happening, like what you described, and I
Right.
was paranoid about it. Um, but I'll do that to kind of as a failsafe to make sure that I'm not doing something derivative too. To
That
make
makes
sure that I'm
sense.
going through it and that it's not just a memory versus like an actual new idea.
You actually accidentally copy more when you don't go and double check yourself, is what you're saying.
Yeah,
Potentially.
potentially.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
That's
not like
funny.
it's really ever happened to give
Right.
this concern, but it is a concern. Absolutely.
You know what I just thought of on the subject? There's a movie I highly recommend called Big Man Japan, which is like a mockumentary.
Mm,
I don't want to say too much more about it. Obviously it's going to be in the genre, the stuff I like, but there's a character in it that is in a rest home, like an older character in like an old age home. And in my book, I have a character in an old age home too. And I am sure I was influenced by that movie. And that wasn't the main point of the movie, but there's just scenes of this character. And like, I don't have relatives in old age, like, it's not something in my life. So, like, that is definitely where that came from. But I saw that movie a couple of years ago and I haven't seen it since. But I wanted to get a feel for what that would be like. And so I watched the Ricky Gervais show, Derek, where he plays like a mentally challenged person that works at an old age home. And this is what I was saying. Where like I the inspiration I had, I didn't want to watch, but I did want to get something a little bit, quote unquote realistic. I mean, it's a
mhm.
TV show, but it's the way the furniture's laid out and the way the people interact and stuff. And you wouldn't read my comic and go, "Oh, this is from Derek," but it probably made it better because I watched that show. But I
Huh.
didn't want to go back and watch the original movie that I really was inspired by. So
Interesting.
yeah,
Wow. Huh. Well, that's cool. I mean, everything kind of influences you, I'm sure, to an extent. But
yeah.
what do they say? There's that phrase that I absolutely hate, but I'm sure that I agree with it in some way. That whole steal like an artist thing.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I just it makes me cringe hearing it. But I
I,
think
I think because people interpret it different ways than
yeah,
it's interpreted.
I think it could be phrased better, but I think that's kind of like an example like that, where you can pull influence from something, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're copying it. You're just pulling the
I,
essence out or
right. And I
something.
think what it's meant to mean is you don't have to reinvent the wheel. If somebody figures
Right.
out a great way to draw a foot, copy it. Look, take their way to draw a foot, use it. It
Yeah.
doesn't mean copy their picture of Superman. It
Yeah.
means copy the way they've learned to draw feet because they've figured it out and you don't need to figure it out. That's,
Mhm.
but depending on how you take it, yeah.
Yeah.
Stand on the shoulders of giants.
Yeah, that's a good.
Hey,
That's better actually. Yeah. There's some people that I've known that have taken it literally, and it sort of dawned on them, like they've heard it for the first time, and they're like, "Oh, great!" and they just start ripping
that's
everything off. It's like
yeah,
that's not what it means.
yeah. It's more like, yeah, learn from them. Don't, yeah. I think
Yeah.
we have another question, but it's for you, maybe.
Oh yeah. This is from Giannis Melkins again. Which bands or songs for you in the same vein? Oh, okay. So
Oh,
similar question, but not shows and movies, but music.
hmm.
Um, I have a weird relationship with music and making art. Sometimes it's exactly what I need, and sometimes I just need silence or I need, movies or shows or something like that in the background. So it pretty much the same answer actually. But as far as like things that help me work, I guess when I'm writing, I do like to try to find music that sort of fits the general tone that I'm going for, but I won't necessarily be listening to it while I'm writing. There's been times that I've had some stuff with like lyrics on or whatever, and I'll just put it really, really low so that it sounds almost like coming from another room, that kind of
Hmm.
thing. But otherwise, it's more distracting than anything else. But I do have a weird quirk that I've just discovered over the last few years since I've started trying to learn inking more. When I'm inking, the only thing I can listen to is punk and hardcore music. That's it. It just gets me through it, and I'm
Right.
enjoying it, and it's wonderful.
Because just
Um,
the fast beat is moving your hand faster or
I
something.
guess, yeah. It just helps me zone out and just do it.
That's
But
funny.
yeah, but anything else, it's kind of like, whatever I'm into at the moment, pretty much.
That's funny because when I'm inking is the only time I can listen to anything. I can listen to any
Really?
music. I can listen to movies. I could because I don't have to think about it. Like if I've done my job in the pencils, I mean, I have to think about it a little. I have to think about hand control, but I'm
Okay.
not making decisions. So when I'm inking, almost anything could be on. When I'm writing, I almost want nothing on. I definitely don't want videos or podcasts. And if it is music, it's got to be like instrumental or.
Mhm.
So that's but I do when I'm penciling and doing layouts and stuff where it's somewhat creative. It's not like I don't want to say creative because it's not like inking isn't creative, but there's some decision making to be made, but I'm not reading. That's when I'm in the middle area where then I'll get more picky like you, where I'll listen to music, but I want it to fit what I'm doing a little bit. And my default is when in doubt, I listen to a lot of Japanese theme songs for television shows from the 70s and 80s.
Nice.
I listen to that so much, it's ridiculous. Like whatever that genre, like I guess it's Anna song is maybe the genre, and that's like one of my genres that I listen to. And I don't speak Japanese well enough to even understand most of it, but something about that appeals to me. Not just when I'm working on my kaiju books, but just in general. It's usually kind of upbeat and fast paced,
Yeah.
and got like just I don't know. There's something good about it, and I think maybe not understanding the lyrics sometimes helps too because I don't get
Mhm.
too into it.
Yeah. I can relate to that. I'm a huge fan of the old Jet Set Radio and Jet Grind Radio
Oh,
games. Those are
okay,
my favorite games of all time, and I have both of their soundtracks, and I'll listen to that all the time. And there's a lot in there that's actually different languages and stuff too, or I don't know
right,
quite what they're saying, but
right.
that's
But it's
kind of a
it's a
go-to.
vibe kind of you're getting out of it.
Fun fact: did you know that the Latch Brothers, who did a lot of the music for those games, that's actually the Beastie Boys?
No.
Yeah.
Ah! That is cool. I would be more impressed had I heard of the Latch Brothers. So I apologize. That's
Oh,
my ignorance is making the revelation less impressive than it should be.
that's all right. I low key blew your mind. You're gonna learn about it later and retroactively. You'll go, what?
Yeah. My chain would probably be like, oh, I like the Beastie Boys. Hey, did you know they worked on a video game? What? Yeah.
Oh, okay. All
Yeah.
right. I should have gone in that way. Oh,
That's
well.
fine. You don't know what's in my head.
I don't. I can't know this.
In the chat, Peter Palmiotti is saying, I like electronica for inking. So it's kind of the exact opposite of you. Well,
Yeah.
I don't
that'll
know. I think of electronica as being more mellow, but I guess there's like psychosomatic, attic insane.
Yeah,
So
could
it
be.
depends on what he means. But
You know, or like the more like techno electronica kind of stuff. Like
I guess I was thinking more like
dubstep, maybe.
beam,
I don't.
beam.
I
That's
have a
not
hard
music.
time seeing Mr. Palmiotti as a dubstep person, but I could be wrong. I don't know. Peter,
I
if
assume.
you're listening, let us know. We need clarification.
Actually, one other thing regarding music, a story before I started doing the Horror 4, there's a couple different stories I was contemplating making. And one of them, which who knows, maybe I'll go back to it one day, was a story set in the 90s. And, I went to high school in the early 90s or mid 90s. Yeah, 90s. Early mid 90s is when I went to high school. And so when I was working on that book, and it was with younger people, like high school age people, I was trying to put myself in that headspace. So I was listening to playlists of 90s music, and not necessarily 90s music that I liked, but just like what was the popular music in the 90s, top 40, stuff I liked, stuff I didn't like, just stuff that would be on. And again, that project I ended up not working on, but it did really help me get back into the head of a 90s teenager, by doing that.
I could see that. I could definitely see that, especially when you're working on a period piece. That makes sense. That's really cool.
Yeah, thank you. Peter says upbeat and energetic.
All right.
Why do I keep trying to do this? I have no idea. I think we should be done. I think I'm losing it.
We almost had a new theme song there.
Okay, you do the lyrics.
I don't know.
Well, 168 comes to mind.
Yeah.
All right, I'll do it all myself. 168. It's gonna be great. It's hard to do electronica with your mouth by yourself, especially when you don't know the genre that well.
Maybe. Let's try it again one more time.
Okay. Here we go.
168. You know it's gonna be 168. Hey. That's like YMCA. What the hell are we doing?
I said we should stop a while ago, and you kept it going. All right, everybody in the chat, we love you. Everybody in the replay, we love you.
We do.
Yeah, I do. Well, I guess I can't speak for you.
I looked at the live feed and
I was starting to close it out, but we're on your channel, so I don't want to step on your toes, sir.
Oh, no, you can, but I will anyways. So that's it for now. We learned some things about ourselves and each other today, and I hope you did too. And don't forget, we're also going to be gone for 2 weeks, so we'll be back somewhere around the 10th. And to close it off, let's see. Well, go for you, Gaz. You go first. Where can everybody find you?
You go for Gazbot. That's right, Gazbot on the internet. Anywhere you want to find me, I'm Gazbot on Facebook, on YouTube, on Instagram. It's Gazbot with 2 T's. You can find me on Tumblr and Twitter. I don't go on there, but my art's on there. Feel free to look me up on Facebook or at Godzilla Fest 7 in Chicago, Illinois. In like a week. No, that's not true. In like 3 weeks. We'll talk before then. Whatever. I'm Gazbot.
And as I learned today, actually, if you go to facebook.com/Gazbot, you will not find Gazbot. You will find a strange man in a horse mask.
That's true. But if you search for Gazbot on Facebook, I believe I am the first one that comes.
You can search. But you should check out that picture too. It's pretty great. And you're on my channel, so you know where to find me. I'm Mike Emmerich. You can Google that. Go to Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, all the places. Links are going to be in the description below. And that is that for today. Goodbye.